Good evening and welcome to this program, Democracy Under Threat. My name is Susan Rodrigues, and joining me this evening in the discussion is Bishop Juan Edghill. Bishop, thank you very much for joining me this evening.
And Susan, greetings, and greetings to all of our viewers and listeners and all those who are following us on Facebook as well.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for those of you who are joining us. It's Saturday evening, but we're here to discuss the ongoing political crisis that our country is in. And Bishop, in your opening comments, just bring us up to date, bring our viewers up to date on the situation as it is up tonight.
Well, I want to begin by first of all apologizing to all of our Guyanese brothers and sisters. This is a Saturday night when people are expecting to have a lighter mood, entertainment, recreation. And here we are in your homes, in your space, and the only subject on the minds of everybody is what is happening to our beloved country, Guyana.
That's right.
How democracy is under threat, why we don't have a declaration as yet for the winner of the March 2nd, 2020 elections. People are confused about what is happening in the courts. People are wondering why, if the president agreed with the leader of the opposition under that CARICOM-brokered arrangement for a national recount, why would one of his own people go to the court, aided and abetted by lawyers that defended him and his party during the no confidence motion, to stop the recount? Is the APNU AFC falling apart? And what is the future for Guyana? But all of that, what I just said, is what people are worried about, some of the questions that they are asking and the inquiries that are being made. But I think more importantly, let's talk about what we know. And what we know for sure is there has been a significant backpedaling on the issue of a national recount, which would have settled this political crisis that we are finding ourselves in by now. We know that the statements of poll, the chain of command of it was broken when the police forcefully evicted party agents and representatives out of Ashman's building on that fateful night under the directions of the deputy CEO of GCOM, Ms. Roxanne Myers. We know about the fake declarations, numbers that don't match actual real statements of polls coming from a spreadsheet. We know about the court cases that challenged Mr. Mingo, the returning officer of Region 4, to comply with Section 84 of the Representation of the People's Act. We know of his non-compliance and then the filing of a contempt of court proceedings and instructions from the Chief Justice, which led to further non-compliance and then a declaration. And then we know about all of the other undertakings and commitments that have been made. Commitment number one being made by the president, that he wants a national recount and he will not be, he would not like to be sworn in on results that are not credible, transparent, and not verified. At least that is what he's been saying, that is his commitment. But we have been getting from the ground at least 4 preparations for swearing in has already gone. His people have been mobilized from various quarters to come to Georgetown for swearing 4 times. So we know that. We know that the chairman or the chairwoman, the chairperson of GCOM, retired Justice Claudette Singh, she would have made an undertaking to the Chief Justice at court, and as well as to the nation as a whole, that she would facilitate a recount of Region 4, because it was Region 4 that was under dispute at that time, to ensure that we get credible, transparent, verifiable results. It is her chairmanship that is at stake. It is her credibility that is on the line. It is her leadership that is being questioned, and everybody's watching to ensure how it will play out. And we had the CARICOM mission that came into Guyana. I think it was last Saturday night. The CARICOM mission landed in Guyana late last Saturday night with a view of starting a recount by Sunday morning. Everything was stalled. They had the PNC or the APNU AFC nominated commissioners at GCOM putting in all the stumbling blocks about legality, terms of reference. We have to get documentation, and then there was a proposal for an aid memoir, and then when the aid memoir was prepared, corrections, wordings, paragraph.
Then they have to fumigate the place, and the excuses got more frivolous as time went on.
And we had a situation where, while all of that is being done as a form of delay, lawyers for Ayulita Moore, who is an APNU AFC candidate at the regional level, files an application, a fixed date application to the court, and obtain ex parte in chambers an injunction restraining GCOM from doing what the president and the leader of the opposition agreed with CARICOM to do, and why the CARICOM people were here in the country, which was a recount. So confusion. And then we have a president who makes a statement that he regrets that the CARICOM people has withdrawn, as if he is just awakened from a slumber and he did not know of all the maneuvers that were taking place in his own camp. And then we had the court cases that were heard on Friday, and that was not without its own drama, because the normal expectations of the Guyanese people were unmet, because when we had these matters before the Chief Justice, she facilitated additional seats in her court. She ensured that there was amplified sound on the outside, so that those who did not get in, they were able to listen from the outside, journalists and reporters to report from the courtroom, so to speak,
in the interest of
transparency. And then we were met on Friday morning with a limit of how many lawyers could represent a party. No reporters allowed in the courtroom. The public gallery was basically shut off. No public persons or persons of interest could have attended. And then there was a drought of information. And now we are hearing that there is a process of filing of affidavits and who have to file in response by what time. And then we're all sitting, waiting until next week, Wednesday, when this matter is going to be addressed by way of arguments or whatever is going to take place on next week, Wednesday. So the country is being called upon to be calm, to exercise patience, to wait on the outcome of these court hearings. But people are restless, people are concerned. They believe, and I have no reason to doubt them, that the APNU AFC is behaving exactly the same way they behaved when there was a successful passage of the no confidence vote. They're seeking to use the courts as a way of buying themselves time and frustrating the will of the people of Guyana. And I think at this stage we need to commend our legal team, both our local lawyers as well as our external lawyers, for the robust and aggressive approach in dealing with these matters and ensuring that they are being properly handled. And what do you say to Guyanese on a Saturday night like this? By now we should have had a president that was sworn in and that president should have been Dr. Irfan Ali, because from all indications, from the numbers on the statements of poll, is that the PPPC would have won these elections with an excess of 15,000 plus votes more than the APNU, AFC. We should have had our first cabinet meeting. We should have been talking to the nation about measures for budget 2020, putting a stimulus into the economy to get businesses going again, ensuring we have a multi-stakeholder task force to deal with COVID-19, ensuring the health, safety, and wellness of all of our seniors and vulnerable groups at this time. Those are the conversations that we should have been having at this point of time. And look what is the conversation we're having here on a Saturday night.
And bringing relief to Guyanese who have been suffering over the last 5 years, and then they turned out on the 2nd of March to deliver their no confidence motion in the coalition government and to elect a new government. And we expected a peaceful transition of power as we had in 2015. Of course, that did not happen, and here we are, regrettably. But, Bishop, the thing that is on most Guyanese minds is that to them, it is a simple thing that has to happen. And they are correct in their thinking that the simple thing that has to happen is that we have to go to the boxes and count the votes. It's as simple as that. And as long as everybody agrees, it should be as simple as that. But when you listen to the other side, it sounds like there's so many hurdles. There are mountains and hurdles that you have to overcome. And when you listen to them, it seems almost impossible to get to that point, to get to this process that is supposed to be so simple and that everybody, all stakeholders should want. Because what we should want is a true reflection of the will of the Guyanese people. Yet we have all of these hurdles, including legal hurdles, that we can't seem to overcome.
Well, Susan, let me assure Guyanese, the representation of the People's Act makes it very clear that a recount can be done. And as a matter of fact, not just one recount, you can have several recounts and a final count. The law provides for that. So President Granger or Mr. Mingo or Lowenfield or Claudette Singh, they're not doing the Guyanese people a favor by allowing a recount. The law allows for a recount. This is where we are. The returning officer have declared or have put forward some numbers that the number of electors who would have voted for each list. Representatives from the various parties or the lists have in their possession documents that show that the numbers that are being called out are different from the numbers that they have. So there is a dispute. The way to resolve that dispute is if I am saying I have 20 and you were saying that you have 25, let us go to the source that provide those numbers, which is the box, and let us count the ballots and see if I have 20 or 22 or if you have 25 or 19. It is as simple as that.
Yes.
We would have thought that when the president made that request to the chairperson of CARICOM, the Honorable Mayor Motley Barbados' Prime Minister, to come and to facilitate that recount, it was the light at the end of the tunnel. So we were hopeful that in a matter of days this matter would be resolved, only to discover that it was in the first instance the government nominated commissioners at GCON who started creating roadblocks, hurdles after hurdles after hurdles after hurdles. So it was clear at that time, the president was saying one thing, but it would appear that his instructions to his representatives were different to what he said publicly. Or he is saying one thing, and those who he has command over is doing something different and contrary to what he desires.
But I think now, since CARICOM has left, I don't think the president can remove himself now from this situation.
Well,
as much as he tries.
The truth about it, I don't think he could have ever removed himself. Because if you're the maximum leader, you're the presidential candidate, you're the representative of the list, lesser minions in your party cannot defy you. You could have simply said, I want the recount, and that's it. If you don't want it, that's up to you, but I want the recount. But to play Pontius Pilate and wash your hands in public and says, I have nothing to do with this matter. GCOM is an independent body. The courts are independent, and I will not interfere.
But that's
You're not interfering.
That's a pattern that David Granger has. He's been saying that since the no confidence motion.
But he is, because look at this. The night of the no confidence motion, and that's what I want to establish the pattern. The night of the no confidence motion, the Prime Minister gets up in Parliament and says, the government has fallen, we will abide by the Constitution. The next day, the President says, we will abide by the Constitution, blah, 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 blah. The leader of the opposition that night went across to the Minister of State, Joseph Harman, and says, I need to engage the President because this is a matter that we have to talk through. The President made himself unavailable for a meeting with the leader of the opposition until court cases were filed challenging the no confidence vote. So when we went to that meeting, when you know the courts are hearing the matter. So you say the right things, but then you cause others to do something. He says, well, this is what I want. But you're not admitting that you have instructed, allowed, procured, or engineered others to do that. I mean, nobody in Guyana is so daft that they can't see through this. So Mr. Granger's slip is showing. People understand that what we're having here is duplicity at work. Or to make it simple, two-faced behavior. Talking through two corners of your mouth. And this is annoying. It is insulting to the intelligence.
And it's frustrating
to the people of Guyana. I think all of the goodwill that people would have had, you know, this is a good man, he's God-fearing, he's decent, he's not like the rest, he's separated from his ministers who are corrupt. All of that is disappearing because we made those arguments during the campaign. Corruption could be stopped by you. When we brought evidence about ministers who had given contracts to their husband, you didn't fire the minister, you just transfer her to another ministry. When we brought evidence to you about sole sourcing a contract that was ridiculous about the Sussex Street bond, you just do a reshuffling of the ministers. You move George Norton to social cohesion, Walter Lawrence to health, and Ali to social protection. You did not fire them. So he is always been in a position that he looks like I'm doing the right thing, and you say to the guy, I can't allow this, but privately you're saying, good job, keep doing it, good job, good job. So the hypocrisy and the double standards is what is annoying and disgusting Guyanese. And if you go to social media and you follow the comments, now I don't know who is PNC and who is not on social media, but what I can tell you is that some of the people who were abusive to the PPPC and who were commending the APNU AFC during the campaign are the ones now are saying we can't stand this nonsense with this theft of democracy and this duplicity and this kind of insulting behavior.
Right.
They're the ones. So
and people are saying we didn't vote for this. Even those who supported them, we didn't vote for this. And so I want to just remind our viewers of what Mia Motley said. She said, and I quote, "It is clear that there are forces that do not want to see the votes recounted for whatever reason. Any government which is sworn in without credibility and fully transparent vote count process would lack legitimacy." So Bishop, it is clear to everyone that everything is being done, or things are being done to prevent the recount. And if everybody had the country's interest at heart and want to see the will of the people upheld, everybody would be calling for a recount. And any winner, anybody who claims they've won something, would want to prove that as quickly as possible, because you would want to be sworn in, to have all the powers necessary, and to have your ministers sworn in. But this government this president is running from that, because he knows, and all of the people on his side know what are in those boxes. They know it as well as we do, and we've all known it since the 3rd of March, the day after the election.
But you know, Susan, what is interesting is that the spin doctors and those who want to rewrite history and those who want to create alternative facts like Imran Khan and company and others. Let me just remind the Guyanese people, it was President Granger, after the passage of a no confidence vote, who gave a national award to Mia Motley. So that speaks for itself. So don't come now to say that Jack Dio has gotten Mercury to lobby CARICOM to do Jack Dio's bidding. So when Mia Motley, Prime Minister Mia Motley and Prime Minister Rowley and Prime Minister Mitchell and Prime Minister Gonzalez and Prime Minister Skerritt came to Guyana, it wasn't Jack Dio who received them at Ogle. It was Mr. Granger himself.
Right. Well, we're coming to some of the propaganda and the rumors that they're spreading. You wanted to finish?
I want to finish this by saying, even if there are some in our country who want us to believe that the white people, as they're using it, the Europeans and the Western powers and so on, have interest in our oil, and they got some deal with the PPP to put in the PPP so they could get the oil. What's the deal with CARICOM? It wasn't the USA, the UK, the Canadians, the European Union that were going to supervise the counting,
right,
or the recount of the votes. It was CARICOM. And who was the one who turned to CARICOM for help? It was the president himself. So when Mia Motley said there are forces that don't want the recount to happen, she was absolutely correct. I believe she was flabbergasted. I cannot understand the head of state and the leader of a party agreeing with the main opposition party for a national recount. And I'm sending in my team to Guyana to get that done. And people from the party that requested in the first instance the recount is working to stop the recount. Well, this got to be some forces at play here.
Wasting people's time and further embarrassing our nation.
We're the laughing stock of the world. COVID-D is taking the attention of people around the world, but people are still focusing on this, what I would want to call drama, because this is sheer drama in Guyana this time. A dictatorial, authoritarian, totalitarian regime that don't want to give up, don't want to give up power. You've lost an election. Your democratic credentials must be placed on the table. Concede, regroup, and battle for the next round
That's
and
right.
win the admiration of the Guyanese people to
That's
put you
right.
back. Not destroy a country, expose a country to sanctions, bring us down to a place of ridicule, have us in limbo, frustrating the people. And you know, Susan, let me say this. I am a part of the PPPC, but I think all Guyanese would join me in commending the leadership of the People's Progressive Party Civic for the restraint, responsible behavior, and
our citizens and supporters.
and our genuine leadership that was given. Because even when our supporters became impatient and outraged and there were spontaneous protests across the country, our leaders came out and says, we call for calm, we call for restraint, we explained to them that we're going to deal with these matters in a legal, in a legitimate way. There is going to be resolution, and our people listen. If the shoes was on the other foot, Susan, we could not have been sitting here tonight,
Yes, sir.
Saturday night, to be discussing these matters.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of a leadership, a different kind
That's right.
of a behavior.
So, yesterday we saw the departure of the Carter Center team and the reps. And since then, we have these trolls and these persons on social media, including James Bond and Imran Khan and Walla Lawrence and the Chronicle, who are twisting the statement and using extracts of the statement by the Carter Center in isolation and saying that these people of Carter Center have left because PPP disrupted the process. So we need to set the record straight once again. So this is from, I'm going to read from the statement itself and in relation to the reasons that the Carter Center left. The Carter Center made the difficult decision to have the team leave Guyana earlier today after weighing a combination of factors, including the absence of an ongoing electoral process, increasing restrictions on international travel because of COVID-19, and the decline in the security environment in Guyana. Further, in light of the current injunction and subsequent legal process, there is not currently electoral activity for the Carter Center to observe. The security environment in Georgetown has declined in the wake of the impasse created by the non-transparent tabulation process in Region 4. International observers have been harassed, and protesters supportive of the APNU-AFC coalition have at times blocked international observers from doing their work. Specific threats have also been made against the international community that are unacceptable and further undermine the credibility of the electoral process. If you can't get any clearer than this.
Well, this is what the PNC is noted for. They did it with the no confidence rulings of the CCJ. They take a part of a line. You know, in religion, people do that with the Bible as well.
Yes.
They don't take the whole scripture, they just take a line out and they twist it to suit their own ends. And this is what is happening here. The Carter Center made a strong comment about the atmosphere at the Ashmans building. The Commonwealth made a statement as well. And the Commonwealth gave a vivid description that the protestations were or if the Commonwealth made it this way, the declaration without the completion of the verification process is that what caused the protestations, and not the protests caused the declaration to be made the way in which it was made.
That's right.
And you know, these are simple matters, but you know, in the day and age where everybody have their cell phones, people are tuned into live stream. I don't think that Walla Lawrence and James Bond and Imran Khan, even if they take the full $18 million signing bonus that they hit from the Guyanese people, and they spend it on a PR campaign, could convince the Guyanese. The Guyanese saw for themselves.
Yes.
Why you believe the international observers, all the international observers, have concluded, some have actually gone to the point of electoral fraud, lack of credibility, lack of transparency, a vote count that lacks transparency. They were all there and they saw what took place at the command center of the returning officer of Region 4. And no amount of recreating a narrative and trying to put blame on the PPPC will help this government from being exposed to the world. The four diplomats that walked out, the ABCE, Americans, British, Canadian, and European Union, that walked out from the command center, they walked out in disgust.
Yes.
They walked out, they saw the charade, they know that...
And they saw it early.
Yes.
They saw it before we even went back to court to compel Mingo to
carry out with the contempt of court proceedings.
Right, to follow the ruling of the Chief Justice. And we don't shy away from the information or from... So this is the part where the statement mentioned the PPPC, and it says this: the environment at the GCOM office where the tabulation was being conducted for Region 4 was at times chaotic because of the large number of persons present. And of course, everybody who was in there was accredited to be there. And the efforts by PPPC representatives and others to disrupt, and this is the important part, the declaration of results. We have never shied away from that. There is video evidence of that. We were saying no when he was declaring.
You gotta get verification.
But we did not disrupt the tabulation process. And that is the distinction that they are refusing to draw. And that's the propaganda that they're spreading, that PPP disrupted the tabulation.
So the man couldn't do his work.
So he couldn't do his work, and so he went to declare. That is completely false, and that must be debunked, and we hope that we've cleared that up. Well, since we're on this point, there's another narrative going around about fresh elections and all of these things. And even that was addressed in the Carter Center statement in this way, because they mentioned that the polling was well administered, and it says this: Guyana's electoral process began well. The Carter Center noted that the polling it observed on March 2nd was well administered and reflected international standards for democratic elections. The process was sound and capable of delivering results that credibly reflect the will of the people. Which means, Bishop,
nothing wrong with the elections.
Nothing was wrong with elections, and that the will of the people
in those boxes.
And that's why we have to protect those containers, because if you go to the containers, you will find out once and for all what the will of the Guyanese people is, what the will is, what they voted for. So it's right there. We don't need fresh elections to find out what the will of the Guyanese people is. And further on this point, on the tabulation, the Commonwealth said this in relation to the tabulation process. It said the group did not observe any material or substantive impediments inside the tabulation room which might have prevented the resumption of the tabulation process. So there again, another group saying there was no disruption. So this line that the APNU AFC coalition is peddling, that we disrupted this process. You have more than one observer group saying that is not so. It says it is in the group's clear view that robust exchanges between political party agents in the room only occurred when the Guyana Elections Commission repeatedly halted the tabulation process. So that's it, Bishop, in relation to the tabulation process. Now, the other thing is sanctions. People are wondering what sanctions will look like, how they will affect our country, the people of our country. But before I get your take on that, I want our viewers to have a look at what David Granger himself said in 2014 with regards to sanctions.
Brigadier, I know for a fact that The British High Commissioner said that it seems as though Guyana would have to come on the review. But from your perspective, what benefits do you see Guyana gaining from such sanctions?
Well, the sanctions inevitably will affect all Guyanese citizens, and we will all suffer once there are sanctions. The question is who will suffer most, and whether that period of suffering, which is bound to be short, is going to have the effect of bringing about a change in government's behavior. I do believe so. Sanctions will have a short-term effect, and we all hope that the government will be wise enough to act so that the sanctions are not prolonged. Other countries in the Commonwealth have been sanctioned before for breach of democracy. I know Fiji has been sanctioned, Pakistan has been sanctioned, Zimbabwe I think has been sanctioned. And it is in the interest of Guyana to avoid these sanctions, because these sanctions could have a deleterious effect on the economy and of course the way Guyana is perceived in other countries. You know, Guyana wants to attract foreign direct investment, Guyana wants tourists to come, Guyana wants to be able to access donor funding, you know, around the world. But when it is perceived widely that Guyana is a pariah state, Guyana is an outcast, there will be less willingness on the part of donor countries to pump money into what is becoming a failed state, to pump money into a country which does not practice democratic behavior. So Guyana is bound to be the loser, even if in the short term sanctions have an economic impact on the population because of denial of foreign funding. In the long term, I think we'll suffer. So I would say that the government be well advised to avoid sanctions and to comply with international norms. The government should end prorogation, let us have elections, and let us...
So that was the David Granger back in 2014. Your take?
Well, Susan, we heard a mouthful from David Granger in 2014. I hope he just listened to himself. Then you have to ask yourself a number of questions. Is this gentleman having a split personality? Is he a dysfunctional human being that he cannot recall? Is he suffering from selective amnesia? Or he's just downright wicked? In 2014, Donald Ramotar as president did what the Constitution provided for. He prorogued Parliament for 6 months. He could have prorogued Parliament for a further 6 months, and he would have still been in keeping with the Constitution. He moved from prorogation to dissolution into an election. At that time, Granger and his cabal, while the president of this day was doing something that was in keeping with the Constitution, was pressing for sanctions.
That's right.
Here it is that we have a government who lost the right to govern Guyana since December 21st, 2018. Illegally and unconstitutionally held on to power for a year and months. Lost an election on March 2nd and plans to hold on to power using a falsified declaration to allow for him to be sworn in, which is what is called electoral fraud, and would like to tell everybody, well, if you don't like the results, go to an elections petition. The world, not Jack Dio, not Edghill, not Nandalalari or Fanali or somebody else have asked for sanctions. The world that was accredited to observe these elections saw the wickedness that was taking place. They reported to their capitals. statements started to come from various international organizations and various capitals. Serious consequences to any government who gets into office through electoral fraud. David Granger knows exactly what will happen, but he's prepared to put the country through it so that he can benefit. And this is where even APNU AFC supporters need to pay attention to. Now, I have noticed that they have started to put out is Jagdio's taking a position, if he can get the country, he can block it up by having sanctions. So what was Granger doing in 2014 with what you just saw? So let me speak to the APNU AFC supporters. The world do not condone anti-democratic practices. The world do not condone coup d'etat. The world do not condone dictators. And if Granger is sworn in as president of Guyana, all the things that Granger talked about will happen to Guyana. Number one, we will receive diplomatic sanctions. Countries will start breaking diplomatic relations with Guyanese, with Guyana, and our diplomats overseas will have to start coming home. Secondly, our ministers and heads of agencies and high command of the military and the police who prop up such electoral fraud to allow for such a government, their travels will become restricted. The visas that were issued to them, government visas, will be withdrawn. Their assets in foreign countries will be frozen. Their children who are overseas on scholarships, those scholarships will be suspended and they will have to start coming back home. International financial institutions will be barred from lending us loans and giving grants and technical assistance. Some monies that were coming to Guyana will have to stop coming. There could be no further disbursements of loans for developmental program. Businesses would be restricted from doing business with Guyana. Corresponding banking arrangements would be interrupted. People will not be able to use foreign banks to get transfers done. Then we're going to have difficulty with our foreign exchange. Then we're going to be left to only use local because goods and supplies will not be able to come in. And then we're going to go back to lining up for fuel and lining up for flour and lining up for rice. Granger wants to put Guyana through this because he's not prepared to give up power. That is the reality.
And when you listen to him just now, I can't count the amount of times he says Guyana. You must put Guyana first. You know, it's not in the best interest of Guyana. Everything was about Guyana. His concern in 2015 was about our country, was about Guyana, or it seemed to be his concern. Where is his concern for Guyana now? Because he was saying that, you know, if this is prolonged, if we are sanctioned and we have prolonged sanctions, that it would affect all Guyanese and that it would not be in the best interest of Guyana. Where is his interest in Guyana now?
His interest seems to be being the beneficiary of political power to be elevated again to the office of Executive President of Guyana, and that's the end-all game for him and his cabal. What happens after? He probably has a way out, but no dictator will survive in this world. You know, Venezuela, right across the road from us, we don't need to talk too much because we have the stories of the 40,000 plus Guyanese who are living in Venezuela, who are back home now because of what is going on in Venezuela. And Venezuela is a serious oil producer, but sanctions, and I'm not here to pronounce whether they were right or wrong, but the fact of the matter is Edghill is under sanctions, and you're seeing what is happening.
And we just asked the, Jordan just asked the World Bank for $5 million US. Yet they're going around saying we don't need the international community or a sovereign state and so on, but we've just applied for a loan. But I also want to remind Guyanese that even outside of David Granger requesting a recount or talks between the leader of the opposition and him to facilitate this recount, in our law, Article 162 in our Constitution, 162(1)(b) allows for GCOM itself to do whatever is necessary to ensure that we have a transparent process. So if GCOM, and as the chairperson said, that she would facilitate a recount, she has the law at her disposal which would allow her to do that. And for the benefit of the viewers at home, let me just read it quickly. 162(b) says, this is in relation to the functions of the Guyana Elections Commission, shall issue such instructions and take such action as appear to it necessary or expedient to ensure impartiality, fairness, and compliance with the provisions of this Constitution or of any act of Parliament on the part of persons exercising powers or performing duties connected with or relating to the matters aforesaid, which is, they were discussing elections. So GCOM itself has the power legally, constitutionally, to facilitate this recount.
But Susanna, even before you reached there is a fact that Guyanese must start appreciating. Every presiding officer, when they recorded the votes in a ballot box and they prepared what was called a statement of poll, an original copy went to the returning officer in that district, and an original copy under a different envelope went directly to the chief elections officer. Forget about Mingo. Mr. Lowenfield is in possession of statements of poll from every single polling station in Guyana, original copies. All Mr. Lowenfield needs to do is to take those 200, 400 statements of poll and tabulate them. Take it to the GCOM chairman and says, Madam Chair, the numbers that I'm getting for Region 1 is okay, Region 2 is okay, Region 3 is okay, Region 4, there seems to be some problem, Region 5 is okay, Region 6 is okay, Region 7 is okay, Region 9 is okay, Region 10 is okay. The numbers don't match what I'm getting from Region 4. The commission needs to do something about this. The commission can order without CARICOM a recount. Now, without Granger or
Barjagio, without anybody.
Now, what is worse in the face of all of this is that after there is a declaration by a returning officer, any party who is not satisfied with that count, by noon of the following day, can ask for a recount. In this case, 8 political parties asked the same person, Mr. Mingo, to facilitate a recount. He denied all 8 by saying none of them were statutorily appointed properly within a particular time frame. He dealt with them. He associated with them. He brought them into his office. And when it's time for the recount, you're not legal. You don't have no legal standing. So you're using a technicality to deny a recount. But I'm showing you something. The provisions that were made in the regulations and in the representation of the People's Act, with original copies going directly to the chief elections officer, is to deal with matters like what is before us. So while I'm hearing Mr. Mingo, where is Mr. Lowenfield in all of this? And why is Mr. Lowenfield not calling the commission saying, Madam Chair, there is something that I'd like to bring to the entire commission? The chairman summons a meeting of the commission and he brings the 2,000 and something original statements of poll that he has. Even if you don't want to post them up on a website, like what the PPPC would have done, bear them before all of the commissions and says, look, these are the originals that came to me. They have initials because when they came in, a commissioner from both sides were initialing on all of them. Right? I think they have such a process in a GCON. The numbers don't match. We need to decide what we do from here. Where is Mr. Lowenfield with his original statements of poll? Where is Mr. Lowenfield facilitating transparency, fairness? And remember, Mr. Lowenfield is not just a regular person. He's a statutory officer under oath. Right. Under oath. So you could imagine, you got a political player, because he's a candidate, who goes to the court not only to stop her political leader from agreeing and facilitating a recount, but from crippling an independent constitutional body that is empowered in law to have a recount to ensure free, fair, credible elections, like Granger had incredible. You know, but it was free, fair, and transparent. He put in credible. Let's get credible results now. Yeah. Let's get credible results now. So the whole situation is clear. There is a rigging cabal. There are those who are in on the game. And people have different theories about who is in on the rigging game and who is not in on the rigging game. But if you're not in on the rigging game, come clean with the Guyanese people. Do what is honorable. Uphold your integrity. I mean, I've heard statements in the media that the chairperson of GCOM saying not all the oil in Guyana could buy her integrity. I was present at the time when she was sworn in and took the oath of office. She said she promised to uphold the Constitution and the law. Just simply let us do that and stop the sand dancing and the excuses. This is, like I said at the beginning, I apologize to the Guyanese people that Saturday night we have to be discussing hard politics and getting into all of these issues. But this is not a rocket science issue. This is a matter that could be solved in 4 hours. Right. 4 hours of meticulous content. Look, Mr. Mingo has 80 deputy returning officers in Region 4. All the boxes in Region 4 could be counted in less than an hour. Because if every DRO is responsible for 10 or 12 or 15 boxes, they ask the parties to send representatives and the DRO facilitates the count of those boxes, the 10 or the 12 boxes, and you get we get the tabulation done and you get the real results. All of this going and coming, but you know what? The only people who are believing this lie are the people who wrote the lie, the Imran Khans and the Vala Lawrences and the James Bond. And I hope by tomorrow, Sunday, when they wake up, they will see the light and they will understand that they can't continue this. You know you have lost the election. Why are you holding the Guyanese people ransom and putting us through this stress and then exposing us to the sanctions that Granger himself knows about that will cause hardship to the ordinary people in Guyana? It's unbelievable. It's disgusting. It's insulting. It's vulgar. It's an abusive process. It should not be allowed to continue. And I would hope that every Guyanese, even those who voted for the APNU AFC, you can get hurt. Granger will have a big pension. The ministers will have a big pension. You still got to get a job. 30,000 jobs were lost. You're still without work. The taxi driver who had his flag blowing and tooting his horn, You still gotta get passengers, and if the people can't work, they don't have money to pay you.
And they're fooling people. They're fooling people and telling them all last week, time like this, when we had already known that the CARICOM team was on its way to facilitate this recount. They were at Lamaha Street telling their supporters, we're only waiting now to swear in our president, knowing fully well, this was around 10 o'clock last week, Saturday night, telling their supporters that we're only waiting now to swear him and we're waiting on the final declaration, when they knew a CARICOM team was on its way here to facilitate a recount.
Well, they knew also that they would not allow the CARICOM team to do the recount.
And now we have some, just before we go, we only have a few minutes left, but just before we go, there have been some strange things happening as well. Giftland was approached by
The
police,
special branch.
and asked to turn their cameras, which doesn't make any sense, because if you want to protect the integrity of the ballots, you should, the more cameras, the more eyes, supposed to be more comfort for both sides. But they don't seem to want that.
Well, Susan, there is a pattern. The police was used to put out party agents and representatives from Ashland Building. The statements of poll became compromised. The police was used on Monday night to put out party agents and candidates who had assembled at the Ottachong Convention Center for a recount because they wanted to compromise the ballot boxes. But the vigilance of the Guyanese people became so strong. Hundreds of people were out there every single night. People are outside of GCOM as we speak now, watching those ballot boxes. Yesterday, without notice to the political parties, they just started moving the ballot boxes again. When I was present and I asked and I objected, where are you going with these boxes? The driver of the truck says, we were told to follow the police. The police says they have instructions. But we have people on the road with vehicles that follow the containers. So even if they had mischief in mind, they couldn't carry out mischief. Now we have people every day watching those boxes in a GCOM, and we have people on the outside watching those boxes. And that kind of vigilance is continuing 24/7. You know why? We know to solve this problem, the answer is in the boxes.
That's right.
And we know that the PNC, led APNU AFC, don't want those boxes to even be around, because once those boxes are open, game over. The truth will be revealed, and all of the spins and the lies that have been spewed and sold to people in the grassroots level about the PPP bringing in mercury and these white people ganging up against us, people recognize it's nonsense. The masses of the Guyanese voted for the People's Progressive Party Civic. That is it.
And in 2015, they were proud to say the international community is behind them, and the Americans want them in office. Now they're ready to chase the international community because what they're doing does not sit well with the international community, and now the international community is bad because they don't want APNU AFC according to them. So viewers, we've come to the end of the program. Any final words before we go? Because I see that they're also on social media trying to bait people into a race war. There was the fire to a butcher shop in Barbies. We don't know who set the fire. Of course, we in the People's Progressive Party Civic, we do not condone violence. We have been telling our supporters to stay home, stay calm, that we are working on your behalf. And so clearly we don't support violence, but they're trying to peddle this out there that it was some PPP supporter who did that. So we don't want people to fall prey to that. And we don't condone violence, and we don't condone racism in our party.
But Suzanne, my closing remarks to our viewers tonight will be: pray, act, be responsible, knowing fully well good will always triumph over evil, light will always expose darkness, truth will always stand out over every lie, and ultimately, righteousness will be the standard. This fight that we're in to preserve democracy, we thought in a week after an election it would have been over, you have a new government. But the undemocratic credentials of the PNC-led APNU AFC is on full display. Your leaders, the team that came to you, that you voted for, will not let you down. We promise you, we will fight for you to the very end. It's not over until the truth prevails. So don't give up. Don't lose heart. Don't lose faith. I come to you this Saturday night to tell you, your leaders, your team, they're fighting for you. Your vote will be counted. And those are my final words.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to those of you who tuned in tonight. Please keep us in your prayers. I echo the same sentiments as Bishop Edghill. Keep us in your prayers. We need your prayers, and we need your strength and your support, even if it's through your messages on social media. That always helps to inspire us and keep us going. And you have my full commitment as well, that I will continue to work, I will continue to support the party, and I will continue to ensure that we fight on and that we achieve our purpose, which is to ensure that every vote is counted. I voted in Region 4, and I want my vote to be counted, and we will ensure that all of those who voted, their votes will be counted. So with that, I say thank you very much. Please enjoy the rest of your evening and have a safe weekend.
Good night and God bless.
Good night.